Well, hello, my wonderful broskies and broskies of the Dark Shadow Maverick Nation, and welcome to more What If Free with this What If that concerns something. This is the second time I'm going to be doing it because whenever I paused in the middle, I never unpaused. I forgot to do that. I thought I did, but apparently I didn't, so I was rambling all that time just for nothing. I had so many cool ideas. Damn it, it went all down the drain. So, this is going to be my second try. Because now I have eaten breakfast. Breakfast was the thing that made me pause. So, now that I've eaten breakfast and took my meds, this is what you will be getting. What if Izuku was Team RWBY? And, yeah, I know the whole Rooster Teeth thing and Monty Ohm. God bless his soul wherever he does end up. And I mean that in a good way, all sorts of good way. And whatever spot of wherever he ends up, God bless his soul. I mean, his project is still going strong to this day. There's still fans of it. There are cosplayers of the characters. This project I'm talking about is his passion project, RWBY. Yeah, Izuku. What if Izuku was Team RWBY? And by that, I mean, like, his quirk was literally all of their powers. Like, he had all of their powers. That was his quirk. And also, he had, like, split personality, as in, like, basically all of them would be in his head, like his own Kurama, or, like, Deadpool syndrome. Which is, actually pretty correct, seeing as I have a Deadpool What If now. Like, a MHA Deadpool What If, crossover What If thing. So, yeah. So, yeah, well, what exactly am I supposed to do with that? Basically, I'm just gonna cut to the chase instead of diddle-daddling like I was doing in the original. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Basically, what would actually get this to start happening is this would be the same day that Izuku was born. This would happen the same day that Izuku was born. Well, All Might and All For One would notice that there would be a portal open. Because All For One had opened a portal to send, like a dark mana version Nomu thing into, like, the world of RWBY. And so, yeah. All For One, let's just say All For One had met some of the people from the dimension before, like some evil scientists, and they allowed him to escape the dimension without getting caught. And so that's how he knows about the whole mana thing. And I don't really know what Yang's Super Saiyan-like transformation is called. I'm gonna have to correct myself about that. Or I could just look it up and stop being so damn lazy. What is Yang's transformation called? Okay. Okay. I think I got it now. The energy in RWBY is called aura, and like certain characters have this thing called semblance, and Yang's semblance is burn. I'm gonna say though that the only semblance that Izuku is really gonna be able to use is Yang's semblance, because Yang is my favorite out of the four, with my second favorite being RWBY, and my third favorite being Weiss, and my fourth favorite being Blake. Sorry, Blake, but you know, I love myself some Yang. Zhao Lao. Anyways, so yes, Izuku, seeing as all four of them, he would have the ability to use aura, and seeing as he has the ability to use aura, he would, you know, seeing as he is the main character of My Hero Academia, he would honestly have the ability to use like a semblance. And, I would make, like, out of all the four different ones, my favorite is Yang, so I would make his semblance burn. The one where he is able to absorb damage that he takes, and basically, yeah. So, yeah. Basically, the semblance that Izuku is going to unlock is going to be Yang's semblance. Plus, it would make it sense. I mean, Izuku all throughout is, even whenever he does get the quirk, one for all, he's still only punching things. And Yang's gauntlets, like, they are like a gun thing, but they're like gun punches. And so Yang's one out of all the four is the one that involves punching, so it would make sense that he would be the one that, she would be the one that he would be the most familiar with. Plus, and since most familiar with, it would obviously make sense that her semblance would be the one that he would be able to unlock and use. So, of course, he's going to be able to use Burn, or at least his own version of Burn. So, yeah, he's able to use Aura, and he can even, semblance. His semblance is going to be burned because, like I just explained, with the punches. And, making the gauntlets his easiest power from his, like, quirk that he could be, he'd be able to use. Basically, like what I was what I'm going to explain. Seeing as RWBY is sisters with Yang, hers would be the second easiest, and seeing as like Izuku's never really came across anyone who really knows how to use swords like in his childhood, so Weiss would probably be his worst to use. I mean, at least Blake, the long range attack, like the bullets, like Bakugo is like used to throwing explosions as Izuku, so he would at least be able to understand how long range attacks work. So that's why Weiss would be harder. Plus, you also have the elemental like aspect of the swords, like sword. She only has one. You also have the elemental aspect of the sword, plus the fact that I think Weiss's sword is more of like a fencing sword. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully you'll be nice about how you correct me, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, man can only hope. So, basically, Izuku, however, whenever he does go to the... Oh, wait, I forgot to explain how exactly. Basically, the situation is, All for One is back in the RWBY dimension because, he's gonna send out this, dark aura Nomu. Basically, it's like a Nomu, but it's like covered in like a darkness aura. An aura that basically cancels out all of the aura of like everyone else who can use it. And absorbs it into itself and like uses it as its own ability. So it's basically like throwing it back at you. So yeah, basically all four members of Team RWBY are extremely drained, and all the other characters are extremely drained. And so basically, whenever All Might comes out and he's just like, "Oh, I am here," because he followed All for One by creating his own freaking portal thing. Because I'm just gonna say he probably plus ultra'd a hole into the universe because he's that strong. But now he has a lot less time because like he's like really like weakened by being able to do that. So his fight with All for One would continue because he was fighting All for One before like he jumped and sent like the Darkness Nomu out. And now the Darkness Nomu and All Might and All for One are all there. And basically Team RWBY have no real time to like get explained anything except for like the basics before the Darkness Nomu starts to like go ape shit. And basically like All Might just beats the ever living shit out of the Darkness Nomu, but there's still the problem of like both of them are very weakened. Like it's very clear that All for One has lost, but still both of them are very weakened, not strong enough to create the portals. And even if All Might did become like his peak strength, it would still never be strong enough to create that portal because he used everything he had in like that one attack. And so he had to regain his strength gradually. So he doesn't think he'll ever be able to create something that strong again. So basically, All for One is just like, actually, I one-upped you. I have this device that the villains of this world gave me that will allow me to return. So yeah, I pranked you. So he just like All for One just returns back and he's just like, yeah, I did that. And, All Might is just like, what am I supposed to do? And, Yang and Ruby and Yang would just be explaining to the others, like Weiss and Blake, like a plan to basically just use what's left of their life essence to like create a giant beam in the sky. Like I don't know how they thought they were going to be able to do this, but they have technology, they can do this. And so yeah, like basically they decided they were going to use their last of their life essence to create a giant beam into the sky to try to help All Might get back. And it turns out like actual All for One's like device malfunctioned and it ended up him getting like a blasted into the light of energy that was being given off and seeing it basically PBS Kids logic. Good kills evil. All for One is completely destroyed by this light of energy, but it all goes straight through into like another dimension. And before All Might's able to actually make use of this, he's basically stuck now because it went by so fast. Like they didn't have enough time to hold on, but they did have enough time to rip All for One to shreds. So at least All for One will be a problem, I think. So yeah, basically, where would their essence go to? Well, seeing as their essence was like turned into a beam, and that beam would spread out in like all the same direction, like a wave, like where would it go? And well, basically, the four of them are looking for the most pure source so that, however they came back, it wouldn't be as like an evil entity or someone who would want to use their power for like bad. And what more of a pure entity than a newborn baby? And so, newborn baby Izuku, like they just like absorb themselves into Izuku. And so, but they're just like while they were going through, they were able to see like how the society worked. Like people without quirks were treated like garbage, and people with villainous quirks were treated like garbage, and people with weirder quirks than others, those others that had the stronger quirks could treat them like garbage. So they saw that even though like this world seems to have like a hero system, it's a very jaded hero system. So they saw that the only way to truly do this would be reincarnated into someone that was truly pure, like pure beyond any sort of purity. And however else would you do that then by inserting yourself into the adorable little cinnamon bun that we know as Izuku Midoriya? And so, basically, whenever we get to the day where Izuku gets to the Quirk Doctor, you know, RWBY, and, Yang and Weiss and Blake would basically have their own little space inside Izuku's, like, mindscape, where they'd be able to, like, have meetings and, like, sit down and, like, talk about shit. And basically, RWBY would, like, girls, meeting called. It's the Quirk Doctor thing. And basically, everybody would show up, and Yang would be like, "So, what about the whole Quirk Doctor thing? I see they're already there." And RWBY's like, "Yeah, you're late." And Yang is just like, "Oops, sorry." And RWBY would just be like, "It happens all the time with meetings. You're always late. Anyways, we can't let them know that we're basically the equivalent of his quirk. Because you know what we saw whenever we were flying through? This hero system isn't even a hero system at all. It's all backwards and topsy-turvy. Heroes get way more of an advantage than anyone else does. We need Izuku here to become... If he wants to become a hero, we have to know that he can become a hero who won't be like all these other heroes trying to do all these terrible things. And use their hero status as a way to get away with it. And Blake and Weiss and even like Yang agree with this. They're just like, Yang is just like, yeah, that would suck. And Weiss is like, the reason why we chose Izuku is because he was the most pure one we could find. And Blake is, yeah. So yeah, that would... Blake is like, still, yeah, that would suck if he turned. So, you think that by having everyone think that he's quirkless, that this will help? I only really think that it would make him want to turn to villainy. Because everyone would hate him. Especially that Kachan guy. Yes, since Izuku calls Bakugo Kachan, they would call him Kachan. And RWBY would just be like, "Oh, you mean Tiyatsuki Bakugo? Oh, I have plans for that. So, yeah, I know this is gonna suck for him emotionally, but he'll get over it whenever we do get to the point where I know we can trust him." And then they're all just like everybody's just like, okay. And Ruby's just like, meeting adjourned. And everybody just goes back to their own little spot in Izuku's head. And basically, whenever Izuku hears that he is quirkless, he's like, he doesn't let it deter him. He's still gonna become a hero even without a quirk. And Yang just has like this little smile whenever she hears this. And Yang just gets this little smirk and is like, "Good going, kid. I knew I could trust you." And Blake and Weiss are a little bit less sure, but and Ruby's just here to be the equalizer. Plus, she's sisters with Yang. Yang is her older sister, but Ruby's the one holding the meetings here. I mean, this is Team RWBY. So it would be obvious who would be the one who would hold the meetings with everyone else in Izuku's head. And so basically, when would be the time where they would let him use the abilities and even show themselves to him? Well, basically, it's around the time that Bakugo says that maybe if he jumped off a building, he would maybe be reborn with a better quirk or a quirk at all. And basically all of them are pissed at this. Even Ruby, who usually tries to compose herself, even though she really doesn't do that good of a job, she tries to. Even she's pissed. And basically, the first person to raise their hand, and the reason why they're raising their hand, basically, the first person to raise their hand is Yang, and then all of a sudden, a yellow light just engulfs the entire room that they were in, inside Izuku's head. And basically, it's like a combination of Yang and Izuku's voice, and it's like, "You want to say that again, Kachan?" And basically, Bakugo, Kachan didn't really expect this, and he's just like, "Well, it's the truth. Well, not really about actually meaning something. And how the hell did you do that with your voice?" And basically, now Izuku's cracking his knuckles, because, the flash of yellow light basically means that Yang took the driver's seat first, before anyone could raise their hands. She was the first one to automatically raise her hand. Just be like, and just shoot. And basically now she's in the driver's seat of Izuku's every freaking thing that he does. And basically now he's just like, "You messed with the wrong guy, Kachan. I have not had a good day, and I'm not gonna let you torture me any longer." And Kachan's just like, "What are you gonna do about it, quirkless Deku?" And then he's just like, "What the hell did you just call me, Kachan?" And Kachan would just be like, "You heard me, quirkless and then, oh, what the? And you would just hear a gunshot, and would just send him flying. And basically, now Izuku would be glowing yellow, like orange, orangish yellow, yellowish orange. He would just be glowing that color that exudes from that exudes from Yang whenever she enters Burn, her semblance. Basically, her sort of like her aura, like her semblance would sort of try go through Izuku. It would be running through Izuku, and Ruby would have to stop Yang and be like, "Yang, I don't think he's ready for the semblance yet." It's like, "Yang, I don't think he's ready yet." And Yang would just be like, "Oh, was I about to? Oh, I really don't think he was ready for that yet. Wait, is he? Oh, shit. The kid's in worse shape than he was whenever that guy was kicking his ass." And Ruby's like, "Yeah, thanks to you, you could have gotten Izuku killed." And Yang is just like, she really wasn't thinking whenever she was about to use her semblance on Bakugo. And she's just like, she just says in Izuku's head, "Real sorry about that, kid. I thought you could take my aura. I thought you'd be able to take at least some percentage of my semblance. It's called Burn. I didn't want to hurt you with it. I thought you could take it. And Izuku just gets up and he's just like, did he hit me so hard that I'm starting to hear voices? And Yang is just like, nope. And Izuku just realized he has like energy gauntlets like around his hands. And he's just like, what? Well, you see, I'm Yang Xiaolong. I'm a part of your quirk. Turns out you were just a late bloomer. I, well, say that to people besides us. Let's just keep it a secret. Tell everyone else you're a late bloomer, but we all know the truth. And Izuku's like, well, what's the truth then? And Yang is just like, me and my friends, we're all known as Team RWBY, we kind of sucked ourselves into you looking for someone who was truly pure to give our powers to. Because we were just turned into essence, and so we had to find someone to go into, and you just so happened to be the person who was pure enough to be someone we could trust. And I got all of us got so pissed whenever he said that to you about jumping off the school building. Just so happens I was the first one to raise my hand. So the first one to give you my power. This is the first taste of our quirk. I guess seeing as we're Team RWBY, you can call your quirk now RWBY. It allows you access to 4 different styles of quirk. And Izuku's like, styles? 4 of them? And he basically, Yang explains, yeah, mine you can call Glow Gauntlet. Or Glow Gauntlets, because more than one. Glow Gauntlets. Those things around your hand, that's what they are. Gauntlets. And the whole glowing thing. So, Glow Gauntlets. And, well, I have my sister. She's probably going to be not as easy. Like, her power's probably not going to be as easy for you to be able to learn. Seeing as I don't think you have that much weapon training. Well, like, that has to do with size and guns. Basically, hers is like a shotgun / sniper rifle, like, mixed in with a scythe. And Izuku's just like, what? She calls it Crescent Rose. I guess that's because it's red. And RWBY starts speaking, yeah, my name's RWBY. And Izuku's like, well, you said 4 different styles. And then Weiss is like, come on, let me talk to him next. I mean, if we're going to be a part of him for all of his life, at least let me talk to him. I want to get to know him. And Blake's like, well, yeah, well, I'm tired of being alone. And Weiss is like, well, then why do you think I want to talk to him? And basically, like, RWBY explains, the one that you hear with, that's Blake. I guess you could call hers, rope pistols. And Izuku would be like, rope pistols. Well, I know Bakugo can throw I know Kacchan can throw explosions, so I guess that would mean it wouldn't be too hard to get to know. And Yang is like, I knew it. I knew you would find Weiss the hard to get a handle of. And RWBY is like, you really think that's a good thing, Yang? and Yang is like, I didn't say I thought it was a good thing. I just, I'm right. And Izuku's like, Weiss? And Yang is like, yeah, the other one's Weiss. She has a sword that has elemental properties to it. She can, last time I remember, fire, ice, and lightning. Seeing as, being essence, you kind of get things jogged around in your head. So I guess you could call it, Storm Sword, because, there are those things called fire whirls, so, yeah, Storm Sword. Ice, because, hailstorms. Fire, because fire whirls. And lightning, because, lightning from, thunderstorms. And basically, Izuku would be like, thunderstorm. I mean, Storm Sword, that's great. Thanks, Yang, Ruby, Weiss, Blake, uh, thank you all. And basically, Ruby explains, we're 4 different types of your quirk. Since we were Team Ruby, we figured it would be best if you called your quirk Ruby. Only spell with a W instead of a U, because, Weiss. That's basically, and Izuku understands. And he's basically just like, it previews me to 4 different styles of being able to. That's amazing. 4 different styles, that means several different super moves that I could use. Because, they're called super moves, like Bakugo's Howitzer Impact, or Todoroki's Ice or Firewall, or the whole Respiro stuff with Ida. And even at some point in the anime, the gunhead martial arts with Uraraka. So basically, 4 different styles, so that would be a hell of a lot of super moves that he could add to his arsenal. And he would be like, yeah, that is amazing. Thank you guys so much. It's just like, if you've been inside of me for so long, how come it didn't show up with the Quirk Doctor? And why would you guys do that to me? I mean, girls or whatever. And Ruby basically explains, it's the whole pure thing. We wanted to make sure you were pure, or at least stayed pure. Even if you thought you didn't have a quirk. We didn't want to think we were wrong. Or at least, I guess, if we were wrong, we wouldn't let you have our powers at all. And basically, Izuku's like, so you wanted to make sure I'd be pure until the end. That's why you never did anything like powers. But then what about Bakugo? What about Kachan? And Yang is just like, we were all just really eager, all 4 of us were just really eager to kick his ass whenever he told you to commit suicide. I mean, what kind of hero does that? And acting like that would make the situation better? And Yang is just like, yeah, I bet we can all agree that all 4 of us hate him. Anyways, and so it ended up being graduation day, and, Izuku really wouldn't say much about his whole, RWBY quirk and what it does. Basically, in terms of, speed and strength, it's basically his speed, his strength, his, any attribute of, a character, like speed, strength, durability, endurance, all of that is basically Izuku's, amount of that, plus all of, each one of their amount of that, crammed together. So, 4 different characters plus another character's amount put together. So, basically, Izuku is, beyond superhuman level. Plus, whenever you figure... Basically, I don't remember if I said this in the beginning, but, the semblance that he unlocks, that he's going to get, is going to be, since Yang is my favorite character, is going to be Burn. Plus, I mean, with the whole punching thing that Izuku has, in the canon storyline, even whenever he does get full Cowling, he's still, punching things. The gauntlets would be great for him. So of course, he would be the best with them. He would be awesome with all of the powers, but the one he would be most awesome with would be the gauntlets. And then going down would be Ruby's power, and then Blake's power, and then Weiss's power, because Weiss's power is kind of like Todoroki, but on steroids, because it's multiple powers, because you have the sword, and then you have the elements that the sword can create. There's 3 different elements, so that's 4 powers. So yeah, Izuku, of course he would probably have, plus he's never really fought anyone who could, basically, primarily used a sword. So, plus, Bakugo, shot it, threw explosions at him, and, ranged attacks. That's what, Blake's thing is. Guns. Ranged attacks. So, yeah, he'd be more familiar with Blake's. That's why he'd be awesome in all of them. It's just the least awesome one would be with Weiss's power, because, that's a lot of stuff, and he's never been really that familiar with fighting someone who has a sword. That's why he would be the least familiar with Weiss's power, though he'd still be awesome in it. He would just be the least amount of awesome with Weiss's power. He'd be awesome with all of them, he would just be the least amount of awesome with Weiss's power. And the most amount of awesome he would be in would be Yang's power, and basically, punching, that's kind of Izuku's thing, and, the gauntlets are basically punching, but punching, with, a gunshot power. Your power whenever you punch, but add, the power of a gunshot on top of that. Every time you punch someone, it would be that amount of force, plus the force of a gunshot to whatever area you punch them. So, yeah. Yeah. The power of Yang's punches, plus the power of Izuku's punches. Yeah. So, that would be, 2 gunshots per punch. And, yeah, that would hurt a lot. So, I could imagine, yeah, Izuku would have some fun with Yang's power. Because, it's all about, the punching. But, just like how Yang has problems with the enemies who are basic, kicking, they're only, that are more kickers than punchers. Ida has, the engines on his legs, so that might be a problem. But other than Ida, I don't really see anyone that would be that much of a problem. So yeah, Ida only really because of the engines on his legs. If he gets kicked by that and isn't able to block with the gauntlets, that might actually cause a bad problem, considering Yang isn't really known for doing that good against people who are really good at kicking. Unless we get into the whole Semblance thing with Burn, that would basically be if we were to, go into Izuku's power and Yang's power, basically Yang whenever she's in her Semblance, which is Burn, and then basically give Izuku that. Basically, let's just say regular Semblance Yang is just 1%, that each time he goes up a percentage, it would be more of a Yang in her Semblance. 1% is just 1 Yang in her Semblance, and then 2% would be 2 Yangs. Every time you go up a percent, it would be another Yang. Plus Izuku. It'd be one Yang, 1 Izuku, 2 Yangs, 2 Izukus. So you just be going up more Yangs and more Izukus every time you added another percent. So let's say the maximum that he can go right now is 2%, because the moment he activated it, he got freaking burnt. So let's just say the maximum right now is 2%, and that burns him. So let's say like I said, 2%. That's 2 Yangs and 2 Izukus. So, just regular base Izuku 2 times plus Yang and her semblance 2 times. That's the amount of power that Izuku would have whenever he went into his version of the semblance. And his semblance. So basically, it would be Yang's semblance only stronger because there would be percents. It wouldn't just be like the regular, like gaining, like whatever from like every time like they would absorb the damage, like Yang would absorb the damage. It would be in percents, so you could increase the amount of stuff that you gained by percentages. You could go even deeper into this. You could make it stronger. Because Yang could only make it as strong as what she was taking. But now, like, I'm basically going to treat Burn, like her semblance, Burn, as if it was one for all, because that's what Izuku was supposed to get in the main storyline. I'm basically going to treat it as if we added one for all onto it. So basically, having Izuku in the equation basically turned it into like Burn if it fused with one for all. So basically now there's a percentage that you can do with it. Like you can actually add more gains, like the higher percentage you go. Like you would gain more the more percentage. And also it helps like the stronger enemy, like the harder she gets hit. Like actually the harder Izuku gets hit. Plus like the more the percentage, like the stronger and like more like it would retain or whatever, however Burn works. I'm pretty sure the harder like Yang gets hit, the more she is able to absorb and become stronger because of it. I'm pretty sure that's how Burn works. And I'm basically going to say, like, fuse that with One for All, how One for All works. Basically, that's how Izuku's version of Burn is going to work. If you fused Burn regularly with One for All, that's how Izuku's version of Burn is going to work. Because it's not going to be the same as Yang's version. It's going to be different. So, yeah. Yeah, Izuku isn't going to be a slouch. He's going to be like legendary in his he's going to like make a name for himself in his ability. Basically, he hasn't really told like Kacchan much about his RWBY quirk. But whenever the whole actually no, I'm gonna skip the sludge. There was like in the original, I did say something cool happened at the sludge villain attack where he used RWBY's powers, but I'm gonna save that for something. I'm gonna save it for like one final last Actually, no, wait. After the graduation, yeah, we can still do the sludge villain attack. We can still do the sludge villain attack. So let's just say, like whenever the sludge villain tried to attack Izuku, he just used Yang's powers to like gauntlet punch it and like gauntlet punch it through a wall. And so the sludge villain would go to attack Bakugo next. And whenever he saw Bakugo getting owned by the sludge villain, he would just be like, I can't believe I'm actually going to have to protect Kacchan. And Yang would just be like, well, you don't have to. And RWBY would just like shoulder check her. And she would just be like, you helped last time, let me help. And Yang would be like, wait, you're actually taking initiative in this? And RWBY's like, I'm not going to be shy all the time. Plus, I think Crescent Rose would like to see what happens whenever we get crazy with a sludgy boy. And Yang would be like, this is a whole new side to you. I like this side to you. And RWBY would just be like, use my powers instead. And basically, Izuku would be like, okay with this, and he'd just like jump in. And then all of a sudden, whenever he would jump in, he would land. And whenever he would land, like, the scythe portion would be down. But like, at the end is where the gun portion is. So basically the sludge villain would be like, "Aren't you gonna actually try to attack me?" And Izuku is, "I already have." And he basically goes like, "Do do 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 doosh," and it fires about a bunch of bullets. And basically the sludge villain is like, "Ow, what the hell?" Basically like, blew up his eye and a bunch of other areas. And he's blind, and he's basically losing the grip of Bakugo. And Izuku's like, basically saves Bakugo and allows him to breathe. Basically, Bakugo's like, "I could have saved myself, you nerd." And Izuku's like, yeah, all stuff I've heard already. And basically, he's just like, "Well, you've seen the first part of my little crescent rose." And he just winks. He's just like, "You've seen the first part of my crescent rose." Wink. And then basically, he'd just be like, "Now, the second part." And then he just grabs the sludge villain, throws him up in the air, and jumps up in the air above the sludge villain and just goes down. Crescent slash. Boom. Basically, he's giving his own like super moves. And he just basically like crescent slash and just joosh. Actually, no. I wanna do something cool. Seeing as Izuku wants to be a hero, you know, I think he would sort of name his things something extra special. Instead of just crescent slash, he would say crescent hero slash. And just basically, whenever it cut through, it would create a freaking red explosion. It wouldn't just be any explosion, it would be like a red light explosion. Like a freaking, like fireworks just went off. And basically, he would just be like twirling it around in his hand, and he'd just like stop and he'd just be like, "Ruby, your powers are pretty interesting. I was able to come up with my own super move with it. How do you like Crescent Hero Slash?" And no, actually, I think I even have a better name. Since the name of the thing is Crescent Rose, how about Crescent Rose Hero Slash? So he's basically like Crescent Rose Hero Slash. Ching! Basically, Ruby's like Crescent Rose Hero Slash. That sounds amazing, Izuku. And Yang would be like, pretty dope. I admit it, whenever you get up to the part where you can think of something cool for mine, I mean, that would be pretty nice too. And Izuku's like, actually, I've been thinking up a couple things. I just haven't really gotten an opportunity to use yours in a way that would, be all that super. I mean, punching Sludgy Boy over there through a wall was pretty nice, but nothing like anything like Crescent Moon, like Crescent Rose Hero Slash. He's just like, nothing like Crescent Rose Hero Slash. Just not trying to put you down anything, Yang, but just saying, if you know what I mean. And Yang would just be like, I get you, I get you. And Blake and Weiss would just be talking in the corner, and Izuku would be like, what you talking about, girls? And Blake and Weiss would just be like, well, but Blake would just be like, well, we were thinking maybe whenever you started using our powers, you could think of super moves for, like, super move names. And Weiss is just like, but I really don't know. I mean, you're finding it a little bit more difficult to use my power than the others. And Izuku was just like, don't feel bad about it, Weiss. It's a little bit harder. I mean, I'm not as experienced with swords. Plus, the whole element thing kind of throws me off, being told I was quirkless all my life. But it's okay. Nobody has to be put in a downer. You know what? How about we have a little celebration in my head whenever I go to sleep tonight? It's not like a party in my head would make me tired or anything. I mean, it's my mind. I can do whatever I want in it. And RWBY is just like, well, I guess that's settled. Whenever Izuku goes to sleep at night, we're gonna have a mind party. And basically, Yang just is like, well, what's the kid's bedtime? Now she's interested. It's like, what's the kid's bedtime? Like, when's this party gonna start? And Blake and Weiss are like, actually, I'm gonna say Weiss is like, actually, I want to save a party till a really special occasion. Like, maybe you getting into a really popular hero school. I hear something about this school UA. I mean, you would want to go for the entrance exams, right? And Izuku was like, how'd you know what? Oh, wait. Were you looking in my head? And Weiss is like, we live in your head. That's the only thing we really can do. And Blake is like, you liar. You were doing it for the fun of it. And Weiss is like, of course I was, but I don't want him to know. And Weiss would just be like, oh, damn it. I blew my cover. And Izuku would be like, fine, just don't look at anything embarrassing, okay? And RWBY and Yang would just be like, so how's it going? When's this party gonna start? When are you gonna, you know, the whole exam gonna start? And Izuku's like, actually, the exams are really close to starting. I think tomorrow. And so basically, he wakes up like tomorrow, and he's just like, okay, this is the day of the exams. And basically, they all have to listen to President Mike's like lecture, and by like whenever I say they all have to, I mean like all of the students and Team RWBY, also known as Izuku's Quirk. Basically, Team RWBY also have to listen to the lecture as well, because they're inside Izuku's head. And basically, they also have to listen to Ida be an asshole about everything, and the whole 0-pointer business. Because basically, they already aced the written exam because Izuku has 4 people that have already I remind you, RWBY, the series, they're in a high school, and UA is a high school, so they already know this business pretty well, so they'd be able to help Izuku get pretty good acing on that. So, yeah. The written portion wouldn't really be all that difficult. And whenever we talk about the practical exam, with all the robots, and basically, Yang is like, well, they're robots, so we don't have to worry about killing them. And RWBY's like, so you did listen whenever they were talking about the whole heroes don't kill thing. And Blake is like, I didn't think she was ever going to listen to anything that anyone had to say. And Yang is just like, hey! And then Weiss will just be like, can you guys just listen to what this President Micah has to say about the whole robots? And then, President Mike would be like, there is no countdown in a real battle, so go! And then Weiss would just be like, as exactly like I thought. None of you listened. And Yang would just be like, well, we know about that they're pointer robots, and that they're supposedly a 0-pointer. And basically, Izuku is mostly using, the sisters' power. And by the sisters, I mean Yang and RWBY. So Yang's power as in the gauntlets, and RWBY's power as in Crescent Rose, which is the scythe that also has, the shotgun/sniper rifle element to it. So he would basically be using the gauntlets and the shotgun/sniper rifle/scythe thing that RWBY has that she calls Crescent Rose. So he would basically call the gauntlets he would basically call them glow gauntlets because they glow because of the aura that, comes that basically creates the whole semblance, or however that works. But he, would only, use, 1% semblance. He would only go into 1% semblance. Yeah, he would take Yang's advice in that. She would tell him to only do that. Only 1%. Because, while aura in, the RWBY verse is supposed to, protect you, or, make sure that none of that stuff happens to you, since I'm kind of fusing the whole thing with, an element of One for All, it could be damaging, really badly damaging to Izuku if he were to go overboard. So, his maximum right now is only, 2%. But, Izuku eventually does run into Uraraka, and whenever he runs into Uraraka, he runs into the Zero Pointer. And, that whole debacle is finished off whenever Yang is like, what are we gonna do, damn it? And Weiss is just like, and Weiss is just like, Izuku, just think of something. And Izuku's just like, well, Weiss, I mean, it's a really big robot, so I might have to improvise. I choose you. Just be like a Pokemon trainer, like, I choose you. And Weiss would be like, wait, what? You've never really used me in a serious fight before. You've never used my power in a serious fight before. And Izuku's like, well, like President Mike said, there's no countdowns in a real battle. So, that doesn't really matter right now. It's just... And then Weiss's, sort of fencing type sword. I've always kind of, thought of Weiss's sword to be like a fencing type sword. Kind of like Brook's sword in One Piece. Brook, if you don't know who Brook is, I am not only severely disappointed in you, but I am severely saddened for you. So basically, I've always thought of her sword more to be like a fencing type sword. Basically, Weiss's sword gets summoned into Izuku's hands, and so he is able to, barely able to, do the element things. And, the Zero Pointer is whenever, the sword gets summoned, the energy, it manages to kind of throw the Zero Pointer off, so it doesn't step on Uraraka, and, Izuku is able to kind of create ice that allows him to slide over to Uraraka and free her from her, a fate of death. And Uraraka's like, how are we able to move these rocks? They're really heavy rocks. And, seeing as it's 4 or 5 different people, the Team RWBY and Izuku, it's that would be a lot of lifting strength. So he's just like, oh, it just involves my quirk because, he would be right. It does involve his quote unquote quirk. If you can't see air quotes. Of an espiage. Anyways, so he'd just be able to lop off that rock like it was nothing. And, we basically, Uraraka would have seen him basically slide the sword across while he was moving to create this sliding sensation, like he was sliding, almost snowboarding across the freaking thing, creating the ice. And she's basically like, how exactly does your quirk work? And she would just basically so basically, she has a broken ankle or whatever. It was twisted or broken. That's why Recovery Girl had to come out there. And he'd basically, Izuku would basically be like, well, I guess now I know what I have to do. Make sure the damsel in distress is safe, and as for you, sir, And basically the Zero Pointer's just looking at him. And Izuku's just like, as for you, he just goes and uses Yang's powers out of nowhere. And Yang is like, whoop, looks like it's my turn. I think I might have something. I'm pretty sure, unless you remember something, unless you've ever said this before, Yang. And then he just uses the Gauntlet's powers to, like, jet him up into the air. And then, basically, he just, like, grabs the arm and uses it to throw the robot into the air. And then he jets again with the gauntlets. And then he just swings up into the robot's face, and he just basically, like, used the gauntlet to, like, break into the face. And he would just keep on ramming it with the gauntlet, and he basically, energy would just storm up. It would create, like, a giant energy vortex. It wouldn't be a giant one, it would be, like, a compressed one, like a small one, kind of like the Rasengan. And basically, like, the vortex, like, with one arm, he'd just be like, I hope you're hungry! Boom! And he would just smash into the vortex and would blow up the robot's entire, not the face, but the entire head would explode. And the robot would just fall, but Uraraka would be unharmed. And he would just use the aura from both Weiss and Yang to make sure he didn't get hurt. He would use both of their auras to make sure he didn't get hurt whenever he fell, and basically he would run over there and he would pick her up and he would take her over to Recovery Girl with, like, super speed. He would use both of their speed plus his speed to get over there as fast as possible. And he'd basically just be like, whatever her injury is, or injuries, please take care of her. And he almost passes out, but he manages to, like, compose himself. And he's basically like Yang in his head is basically like, that what you said. I do remember saying that before. And basically, Izuku is just like, basically, Yang and Izuku, they're just staring at each other, and Izuku's like, the name of the attack. Burning Hunger. And, basically, Yang is just like, no, actually, Izuku says, Burning Hunger Gauntlets. And basically, Yang would be like, Burning Hunger Gauntlets? That sounds so cool. And basically, Yang would be fanboying over Izuku, like, giving her first super move that he says, like, such a cool name, like Burning Hunger Gauntlets. I mean, that sounds freaking amazing. Actually, since I want to include the name of the weapons and Burning Hunger Glow Gauntlets. Burning Hunger Glow Gauntlets. And she'd just be like, that is so cool. And she'd just be fanboying over the name. Like, Yang would be, like, so super expressive about it. And, eventually, Izuku would return home, and over time, basically, he would get the letter, and it would basically be a disc, and whenever he put the disc in his, like, laptop, it would be a hologram of All Might. Or, you actually know, I remember now, I keep on having to remind myself, All Might is not in this. Basically, it would be a hologram. Actually, I'm gonna say hologram, like All Might, like, pre-recorded this for whenever this, like, whoever graduates. Like, if Izuku did indeed graduate, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. He was only just born that one day. Okay. It would basically be Principal Nesu. I can only see like him being the only other one. It would basically be Nesu, and he would be like, I'm Principal Nesu, I'm the principal of UA, the school that you'll be going to. So, and I congratulate you. You got, let's say he got 100 uh, points for defeating the robots, and he got 150 rescue points for rescuing Uraraka, and how, like, well he did it. Basically, he was no chill, like, not stressed at all, like, he thought everything, like, through perfectly, like, he even knew exactly where to put the robots so that none of the buildings were damaged. So, like, if there were actual civilians in those buildings, which since it was a model city, there were no civilians, but if there were, none of them would be hurt. So, let's just say he got 150, uh, you know, rescue points for all of that calculation. So 100 plus 150, that's 250 points in total, which means he passes, and since that's 250 points, that would give him the top score, meaning basically Team RWBY, all of Team RWBY being his quirk, just RWBY, would be like, they would be like, so do we get to celebrate tonight? They would just be overjoyed, and they'd be like, so tonight do we get to celebrate? And Izuku would just be like, sure. So, can I ask you guys, can I ask you girls something? And they're just like, yeah. And he's just like, how exactly do I get it to where I can come into my mind? Like, is that even possible? And RWBY is just like, well, I guess we could help you on that. And Yang is just like, yeah, of course. And Weiss would just be like, Izuku, you used my powers great. And Blake would be like, I knew it would be able to get out of her shell. The only reason why Weiss is really all this, like, shy in this, instead of being her usual snooty self, is because of the fact that she literally knows that Izuku, like, Weiss is gonna be, her powers are gonna be the powers that he has the hardest time using. So she feels, like, ostracized from, like, the group. She feels like the ugly duckling of the group, like the black sheep. And that makes her feel bad. So, of course, she would have this, like, in a shell feeling. Of course, she would feel that way. Like, anyone put in that situation, I imagine, would feel that way at least somewhat. So that's why she feels that way. But now that she knows that Izuku openly chose her, like, he openly chose her even though he himself knows that, like, Weiss is the one who would be worst, like, the worst to choose. He openly chose her even though there were, like, 3 different others he could have chosen. And he still did amazing. So, yeah. Like, I'm gonna say Izuku does find a way to, like, go into his mind, and all of them are able to celebrate, like, in Izuku's dreams in his mindscape. And they just have the best party ever. And seeing as they're in, like, his mindscape, actually, guys, everyone, this is Colton. Colton, come here. Come on, bro. Yeah. Guys, this is my nephew Colton. Colton, I'm doing a what if recording right now. You can stay in, just don't interrupt, okay? You can stay in as long as you don't interrupt. Uh, I don't think she's gonna follow the rules, so no. Kalyan's a whole different beast. I like to make it to where only one of them can stay at the room at the same time, because both of them in here at the same time, I don't think that they would follow the same rules at all. Basically, Izuku is allowed to drink, because, even though he's not, as of age in the real world, this isn't the real world. This is his dreamscape. He, like, this, any of his rules go. So any rule he wants to make can go. He can make it to where he can drink, so he just gets drunk in his mindscape, and it's not going to affect reality, so he doesn't have to worry about getting a hangover. And that's where I'm going to end it off, because I want to know what's going on, why my nephew is here, and my niece is here. So guys, adouses.